I recently told you about my wild plan to utilize a portfolio of YieldMax ETFs to pay for my recurring solar panel loan. Well, I just finished my first month. The results this month were... What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Average Joe Investor channel. We talk a lot about creating income in your portfolio, but I also like to test a lot of different strategies so you don't have to. We've got a $1,000 cash flow strategy, a $3,000 cash flow strategy, the YieldMax strategy, and much more. Before we dive into the results, let me be very clear and specific about what the strategy was and why it was implemented. So I mentioned previously that I have a recurring solar panel loan that has a monthly payment in the amount of $184.29. Now, for the record, I could have continued to pay $184.29 out of my regular cash flow for the month, but I thought there might be a better strategy. Over the past 6 months to a year, I've talked multiple times about YieldMax ETFs, which are known for very significant yields, but also significant, at times, capital erosion. And what I've come to the conclusion of is with YieldMax ETFs as a whole, the limited use case that makes the most sense for them is not to retire on them by any stretch of the imagination, but instead to find a recurring bill or expense or loan that you would normally take out of your normal cash flow and instead throw a set amount of money into a YieldMax ETF portfolio to pay that bill for you. And technically, whether that portfolio is 1,000, 3,000, 10,000, whatever that number is, as long as that portfolio pays your bill for at least the amount of months that capital would have lasted if you had paid the bills out of that specific amount of cash flow, then it makes a lot of sense to do this. So I decided to set aside $3,000 of capital for YieldMax ETFs, and I did a huge, massive review of all of the YieldMax ETFs to narrow it down to 7 that I wanted in my portfolio. If you're interested in watching that video, it's going to be an end screen at the end of this video, just in case you're curious. Okay, so let's dive into the results here. So the YieldMax debt payment strategy, as you can see in the spreadsheet, we've got $3,000 in capital that was allocated. We've got the total income here, which actually includes one payment for November, so just that number is not important. We've got the monthly expense, the total capital gain or loss on the initial capital. Here are the 7 that I chose, which I talked about previously. We've got AMDY, CONY, MRNY, MSTY, NVDY, TSLY, and ULTY. And just as an FYI, you'll see this on the screen. YieldMax actually adjusted the way that they pay their distributions throughout the month. So instead of paying them all on one date, they actually expanded across the entire month and have set distribution schedules for each of their different YieldMax ETFs, and that's outlined in the spreadsheet. You've got the monthly pay date right here, like I just mentioned. Essentially an equal cost basis here, though you'll notice one of them is a little bit higher right here. MSTY, I'll explain that in just a second. We've got the shares owned, current value, gain or loss as a dollar amount based on the original cost basis, and then gain or loss as a percentage. And again, as a reminder, I don't care about the cost basis. I care about the cash flow. This $3,000 is dead to me for all intents and purposes. For this to work out, all I need is for this specific portfolio, the $3,000 in capital, to last at least 16, 17 months. That's essentially the number where you take 3,000 divided by 184.29 of the actual capital I would have used otherwise to pay for this recurring debt. If it lasts 20, 21 months and then goes to zero, that's fine, because it still was a better result than me just paying this money out of a portfolio, and we all learned something as a result. Okay, so here are the 7 payments that I received in the month of October. Obviously, all of these ETFs pay monthly, and all of them I received a distribution for in the month of October. First, we had on October 4th, we had TSLY, which paid a dividend of $33.01 based on a distribution per share of $109.49, which is essentially a monthly yield of 9.33%, though that is based on current values as opposed to the value at the time that the distribution was made. Then we had MRNY, which paid on the 9th. 2 of them actually on the 9th. MRNY and NVDY, which paid $37 and $109, or essentially $110 per share, or $18.30 and $19.78 in total distributions. And that was a 5 and a 3.86% distribution yield. Then we had ULTY, which is kind of a conglomerate of different option strategies within one portfolio, but multiple stocks, not a single stock. That paid 0.8267 per share, or $33.47 based on the number of shares that I own. Then we had YieldMax Coin, or cony, which paid 1.1098 per share, or $35.45 in total distributions. Then we had YieldMax's AMDY, which paid 92 cents per share, and these were on the 17th. There were 3 on the 17th. AMDY paid 0.9212 per share, or $26.77 based on the actual number of shares owned. And then lastly, on the 24th of October, I had MSTY, which paid $419.81 4.1981 per share, or $70.88, which was by far more than the others and actually more than I expected to receive from that specific stock. And as a result, when you factor in all of these distribution payments here, total distributions I needed was $184.29. I received $237.67. Now, to be perfectly honest and transparent, I did put in more capital than I thought was necessary. Based on my analysis of all the different distributions and the 7 that I picked, I figured that I needed about $2,400 to $2,500 in capital to generate this on a monthly basis, the $184.29 per month. But I wanted to have a little bit of a pad because, I knew that there were going to be variations in the amount of distributions on a monthly basis. Best to have a little bit more capital than necessary, plus 3,000 is a nice round number as well. So in total, like I said, I needed $184.29. I received $237.67, so I had an excess distribution amount of $53.38, plus a very small amount of cash distribution, since part of the month there was an actual cash lump sum in the account. As a result, what I did is at the end of the month, I took a distribution of $184.29. I actually think I took $185 even, and I put that into my checking account to make sure that that payment occurs in line with the actual payment for that solar loan. And then the extra $53.38, I had a decision to make. With that $53.38, I could do a number of different things. Number one, I could take that extra distribution and put that towards the loan and paying it off sooner. Nothing wrong with that. Second thing I could have done was keep that $53.38 as a pad in the account as cash in case there are future months where distributions fall short. And finally, I could decide to split all of that money across 7 different ETFs, or just one in particular, to add more shares to hopefully increase the amount of income in future months. Ultimately, what I decided to do was take that money and put it in the highest yielding ETF from the previous month. And based on these 7 payments right here, the winner was MSTY at a 13.86% yield. You'll notice here that there's a higher cost basis right here at 41 versus 428 for the others, and as a result, there are more shares as well. Okay, so I was successful. I'm 1 for 1 on the month so far, which is great. The other question is, what does the capital erosion look like? And you can see it right here. And this is based on today, November 4th of filming for this one, so just be aware that it's probably a little bit different than what it was back on the end of October 31st. But you can see that I've got a pretty significant paper loss here from AMDY at 15.77%, and TSLY also is down 17%. And then MRNY is also down 17% here. Cony's down 5%, and then Ulti is down 5%. Then we've got NVIDIA, or NVDY, at up 8%, and then we've got MSTY up 6%. So in total, we're down $202. I don't care, right? Because it's not about capital erosion for me. It's about making the payment every single month for my solar loan. Is this a winning strategy yet? Hard to say. We're not sure what the staying power looks like. And we'll have to look at it again and reevaluate once that first month hits. Maybe it's the next month, I don't know. That first month hits where it doesn't quite generate the full $184.29. So more to come on that. Does YieldMax make sense for your portfolio? It depends, right? Every situation is a little bit different. Every investor has different goals and objectives. What I will say though is, based on my experience, based on all of my analysis, I think that the only type of use case you can find for YieldMax is for paying for a specific expense that you normally cash flow out of your normal income for the month. If you can set aside $5,000 to $10,000 or $15,000 to pay for your mortgage, pay for your car loan, pay for your monthly energy bill, whatever it happens to be, and that capital has staying power above and beyond what it would normally take to pay that on a monthly basis, that's a winning formula in my opinion. Make sure to tune in for other update videos that are coming here based on the $1,000 strategy, the $3,000 strategy, as well as my overall cash flow strategy for the month of October. And of course, if you want this spreadsheet, you can certainly join the Average Joe Investor Patreon community to get access to this one, get access to it in Google Sheets, all of my previous spreadsheets, all of the trades that I make in my own portfolio. There's tons of value there. So if you're interested, check out the link down in the description below. Also, make sure to leave your 2 cents down in the comments below. It's my goal to respond to as many comments as possible on the day I post a new video. I'm always curious to know your feedback. That's all I got for you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching.